With the future of the Mario Kart franchise appearing to be relatively uncertain, it's my job to try to notice any possible pattern that could explain the decisions being made, and I believe I have noticed something regarding the Booster Pass now. One sentiment I've seen echoed a few times is that making a worthy follow-up to Deluxe and Smash Ultimate will be nearly impossible due to the sheer amount of content in these games. And that does make some sense. A lot of people think that MK is about to be rebranded to become a bigger Nintendo crossover, and the Booster Pass is a bit of a last hurrah as far as the Mario Kart part goes. And while definitely possible, I'm not entirely convinced that this must be the case. I think we are just living in a world where you must make DLC to keep up for games like MK. So my guess is that they will be able to release Mario Karts in the future with less content than Deluxe, with the promise of more content on the way. Up to this point though, there has been a very interesting distinction in how retro courses have been selected for the DLC as compared to the base games. For base games, retro tracks have always been a distinct set of courses that had not been remade up to the point that they came back. Mario Kart 8's DLC threw a wrench in all of that though, deciding that courses could be remade multiple times. One might rationalize this as there's just been a shift in philosophy. This makes plenty of sense considering they've almost remade every 64 course to begin with now. However, I do think Nintendo still has been treating first and second time retro tracks differently, and this leads me to believe that Mario Kart 9 will still have a focus on retro courses that have not been remade yet. Anyways, I want to put in a quick note. Mario Kart Tour fans, I see you. I understand that Tour is a significant title, and you can argue it to be main series. I play Tour literally daily, and I'm not a hater. I also don't consider it to be main series though, specifically because the way it handles courses is just fundamentally different from all other games in the series. There's no such thing as a Shell Cup in Tour, so when discussing retro tracks, it plays by different rules. That makes discussing Tour in this video a little nonsensical, because the pattern it follows is just completely different. So forgive me when I don't count Yoshi Desert's Tour track as its quote, first remake, even if technically speaking it is. It's not personal just for me to count a remake as coming back to the main series. It's a track that needs to be playable at any point in time for me. It is possible though that tracks without a Tour remake might be even more likely for the next MK though, since they haven't been in the spotlight at all recently. But anyways, my theory for the video is that they are just treating first and second time retros differently in the Booster Pass. Specifically speaking, for a track to be remade a second time, my hypothesis is that it needs to be somewhat popular or have some special quirk. If Deluxe was truly some ultimate Mario Kart title, I cannot help but feel that they would be choosing some different first-time returning courses. This makes me believe that Nintendo is operating on the idea that they will eventually remake all of their old tracks, because they have picked a lot of courses that wouldn't land on many MK All-Star ballots. There are a lot of people questioning why they wouldn't want to add courses like Wario Coliseum or Toad's Factory to the Booster Pass, and I think that the answer is that it actually makes more sense for them to add the more forgotten courses now in the DLC. The next Mario Kart has got to have a selling point. It needs some certified classics, and everything about the Booster Pass is indicating to me that they are planning on going back to only first-time retros for the base set of courses in the next console MK. So having these courses available to them for that occasion makes a lot of sense. First off, they are so clearly showing that it's important to them to bring back all the retro courses, even lesser requested ones. Secondly, they appear to be stashing some fan favorites for later. They could have had a Rainbow Road Cup in Wave 6 for instance, but how do you follow up on a game with every Rainbow Road? Look, I've got a lot of nostalgia for GBA Snowlands, but I don't think it's going to be selling many copies for MK9. So when debuting it alongside Mushroom Gorge and Waluigi Pinball, suddenly people don't really think about its selection as much. A lot of the most popular courses have already been retro courses before that we don't think will be in MK9, so if they truly want to bring back every track, it just makes sense to mix in the lesser known first time remakes with the popular returning retros. They're adding courses like Coconut Mall and Maple Treeway, courses that likely won't be in 9. Sell us on the retro courses that would be eligible for the next MK, but wouldn't generate as much hype. It's actually really clever in my mind, and their selections are being made with great attention to balance. From what we are predicting right now, we're expecting there to be 13 original retros in the Booster Pass and 13 second time ones. So let's go through all their DLC selections, starting with courses that are being remade a second time. Mario Circuit 3 is one of the stranger picks in my mind, but it was also the first MK course according to SNK's files. I'll put the link to that in the description if anyone's interested, and shout out to Delta for telling me about this. On top of being a popular retro track from Wii, this makes it practically the most likely SNES course to get another remake, outside of Rainbow Road, which already was given that opportunity in 8U. As mentioned before, Calamari Desert was the first true standout course in the series, or the first one that introduced some kind of weird gimmick in the form of the trains. It is a map that invokes a lot of emotion in old-time karters, whether the track deserves it or not. So it definitely makes sense as a track that they would want to bring back to consoles again. Choco Mountain in my mind isn't the most popular course, but perhaps I'm wrong on this. It has a lot of cool history dating back to its shortcuts on 64, and got a dedicated episode of Summoning Salt for that reason. The ladder next to the start-finish line has always made me wonder if it was a reference to the Weather Tanko, but it's on the wrong side, so who truly knows. But it feels like very strange placing for that random ladder. Regardless, Choco Mountain was very confidently used in the Booster Pass trailer as a sell for the whole DLC, so it seems that Nintendo at least had the impression that it's quite popular. I think the three most popular Super Circuit tracks are Sky Garden, Ribbon Road, and Rainbow Road, so it makes sense to select Sky Garden as a second time retro here, regardless if you want to call this remake actually Sky Garden or not. Ribbon Road was already in the game, and Rainbow Road probably is a track they want to save, so it makes sense to see Sky Garden as the only second time GBA course in the Booster Pass to me. Double Dash has a lot of fan favorite courses. You have Baby Park and Yoshi Circuit in this game, which are popular for obvious reasons, so it makes a lot of sense that they were some of the first courses to be remade a second time back on 8U. But you also have courses like Daisy Cruiser, Waluigi Stadium, DK Mountain, and Wario Coliseum as fan favorites. Of course, we know Cruiser and Stadium are in the game now, and since Coliseum hasn't appeared yet, I don't think that this is the time to add it. DK Mountain has been remade before, and considering it's in Tour, I kind of expect it to be in Wave 6 for this reason, as it is a fan favorite. Dino Dino Jungle was somewhat popular as well, and it seems there would be a lot of reasons to add it too, but I am fully expecting Mountain just because it seems to fit the bill more for the other returning retros that they've added. Mushroom Bridge, of course, might still be in, but I'm not sure. I would not be surprised if it was cut, especially since it would have been one of the least notable courses getting a second remake, and I personally think Moonview Highway replaced it for this reason, even if the course ID isn't indicative of that. I still believe in the mystery course though. Moving on to DS tracks, Waluigi Pinball speaks for itself. Gotta have it in the DLC pack, because it's a complete fan favorite. Peach Gardens though is one of the weirder ones. I definitely would have expected Airship Fortress instead. Peach Gardens was popular in two of the higher selling games in the series though, and a big reason I think it got in might have just been because they wanted to turn it into a custom track with the whole Lap 3 business going on. This brings us to the Wii courses, where they brought back all of the immensely popular tracks from Mario Kart 7. These four courses were the only possible double remakes from MKWii, but it definitely didn't stop them from adding all of them. Of the four, I think Koopa Cape is the least popular, yet it's still very much a fan favorite that was kind of the trailer feature for Wave 5. So yeah, all the courses they put in the Booster Pass were, a second remake, as well as the 8U DLC that came back a second time. They've all been quite notable. They've frequently been used as the forefronts of the trailers up to this point, and that's not really a surprise. They are the selling point, really. But as mentioned, the selection of first-time retros seems to be the opposite, if anything. Starting with SNES Bowser Castle 3, the track that we feel confident will be in Wave 6, it is one of the preferred tracks from this game by the community at large, but with this being said, the hype around this track definitely appears to be because we recognize that there's going to have to be at least one more SMK track in the game. It seems to be one of the better options. But before the Booster Pass leaks really started dropping, there weren't a lot of people pounding the table for this track. The GBA BCs have always gotten a lot more buzz traditionally. Riverside Park, Boo Lake, Sunset Wilds, and Snowland are all first-time retros as well, and I think that the perception of all of them is that despite their simplicity, there's a lot of charm with them. There are welcomed breaks from the more ambitious track designs, and a lot of them were popular in the context of Super Circuit. They just aren't the types of courses that people usually put on their most wanted list. DS Shroom Ridge is one of my favorite courses in the series, and it got a lot of nostalgia-based hype when it dropped in Wave 1, but that being said, I always saw it as an underrated gem that many people forgot about. In many ways, that made it a perfect fit for the Booster Pass in my opinion. On the other hand, DS Mario Circuit was a course that nobody asked for, and despite returning for the first time in 18 years, a lot of people were just mad that Airship Fortress wasn't in instead. It's a fine enough track, but again, it would not have been the biggest hitter for a potential MK9. DK Summit was a pretty popular course from MKWii, but we've also got to mention that they literally brought back every possible second time retro from this game already, and they were never going to have only 4 Wii courses in the Booster Pass. This is definitely one of the bigger surprises to me, but perhaps they decided it was time to do it in a game where they were putting half pipes back in to begin with, since this is the one track where half pipes are truly required to make a functional remake. Moonview Highway has its fans, but I would say it's one of the less notable courses from Wii. With tracks like Toad's Factory, Bowser's Castle, and Dry Dry Ruins still out there, this feels like a good course to put in for Wii content that will save a lot of the fan favorites for later. Before getting into 3DS courses, I do want to acknowledge that Ribbon Road, Cheeseland, and Neo Bowser were first-time retros in the Wii U version of the game that were DLC, and all of them were among the most popular courses of their original game. It is worth stating, though, that these courses came to the game at a time when they weren't really expecting to add 48 more tracks to MK8, so they probably weren't as worried about having popular courses remaining for future titles as they were when making the Booster Pass. Finally, moving on to 3DS courses, there's Toad Circuit and Rock Mountain. I'm sure they were ecstatic to knock Toad Circuit out early, and while Rock Mountain was more notable, I don't know if I would classify it as a fan favorite. However, they did bring back one huge fan favorite from 7, and that's 3DS Rainbow Road. And we have to talk about Wii Rainbow Road as well, for that matter. So it is no secret that these are two of the more popular Rainbow Roads in the series, so they kind of go against my theory of Nintendo largely avoiding a lot of the fan favorite tracks that still haven't returned yet. However, I do have an explanation as to why. For a while, there was always a pool of 70 or so tracks that they could remake for the next MK game, and this number was unchanging because for every 16 retro courses, there were 16 new tracks. But due to the Booster Pass, they have really accelerated through a lot of their options for the next MK game. There are actually very few GCN and DS courses they could feasibly choose for the next Mario Kart, which means GCN and DSRR are going to have to come soon. This means that if they don't want to completely change the formula, and no Rainbow Road Cup kind of makes me feel like they don't want to change the formula, the only time to actually return popular courses like Wii Rainbow Road and 3DS Rainbow Road in the near future was the Booster Pass, because otherwise, Wii Rainbow Road is likely waiting 4 more games and 3DSRR would wait for even more. And they don't have time for that. Pretty much I believe they had no choice but to bring back these tracks early, otherwise they would have been at the end of a long queue. So what does this all mean? Well, like I've mentioned, I think the base retro track selection of the next mainline Mario Kart game will consist of first-time retro courses. Whether or not there are 16 of them or perhaps 24 is still a big question that I don't really have any confidence answering right now. Plenty of these courses will be courses debuting in Mario Kart 8, especially since the first 6 titles have so few courses remaining to choose from. I think they might bring back a lot of tour tracks, especially the unique ones like Ninja Hideaway, Sky High Sundae, etc. Maybe they bring back some cities too. They might even bring back more than one N64 course, but who truly knows on that. So I'm not going to sit here and make a prediction on what I think the lineup for that eventual game will be. If I do that, I might accidentally spawn another Booster Pass. But I will say, I expect to see a lot of potential fan favorites, and this all starts with GBA Rainbow Road. They had so many opportunities to bring it back, and Tour practically remade every single track yet to be remade outside of, I think, Broken Pier in that game. I believe GBA RR will keep the pattern alive of being the final track in the Lightning Cup, though. I see courses like Toad's Factory getting in as well. It's a notable absence that I don't think they'll ignore for much longer. N64 Wario Stadium was a popular Booster Pass prediction, but I always had a hunch it would be saved for the next MK, and it's still on the board. I think perhaps Wario Coliseum might get in with it too, as another fan favorite that hasn't made an appearance at all recently. Perhaps Mushroom City will get its time too, as one of the prominent traffic courses not be in a game yet. There will be a fully 3D retro Bowser's Castle in the next MK game. Looking at the numbers, it feels utterly impossible that this wouldn't be the case. I think it will be DS Bowser's Castle, but the GCN and Wii ones look possible as well. I know the SNES courses don't get talked about much, but how about MC4? It's felt overdue for a while now, and the Booster Pass choosing MC3 again feels like it's being saved for later. I wouldn't be surprised to see it in the Leaf Cup of MK9, honestly. That really only leaves us with 3DS courses. At least one of the Woohoo Island tracks from MK7 feel likely as well. They've been the only tour holdouts as now, and I know many people like them, so maybe we see them as well. This may come as a shock, but given the distribution of courses remaining, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of the Wii U and Tour tracks are front-loaded into the earlier Retro Cups. They've dug themselves a hole with Special Cup courses yet to return from the older games at this point. But anyways, more discussion on this point is just rambling. So what do you think will happen? Perhaps you think the exact opposite and all the Tour remakes that weren't used in the Booster Pass will be part of the foundation of MK9's retro selection. I don't think this will be the case, as they've treated the Tour Nitro courses very differently than the Tour Retro courses, bringing back all of them in the Booster Pass. This leads me to believe that they're treating these Tour tracks as more of Nitros even in this game, as opposed to first-time remakes. But anyways, that's all. Thanks for watching, y'all. If you liked the video, a like and a sub goes a long way in helping me out, and I'll talk to you all next time. Thanks.